Hey folks, ET here, and I'm coming at you with our little midweek mashup, kind of a continuation. We're going to do this 2 or 3 times a week, kind of like the Sunday video we posted, but we'll update with a few different tickers, or just one different ticker tonight, and kind of look at the data and see where it's going. So for starters, what I really find interesting is at the end of the day, we started to see puts increase and puts increase and puts increase, yet price continued to go up. We did not have convergence, right? So when we don't have convergence, price can move freely in a ghost zone, which is what it was doing. It was in that big ghost zone that we'll look at here in a few minutes. So it kind of just continued up, but puts were pretty heavy going through there. Another interesting thing at the end of the day is we didn't get down to 414, and it continued to grow. I want to point out that today people were eyeing this 410 over and over and thinking that the market was going to go down. It did have that really big dip to about 410.30, but this did not grow the rest of the day. In fact, it stayed the same while other levels started to grow periodically throughout the day. So price started to pull towards the ones that were actually getting some action, and the ones that remained the same didn't grow really or shrink too much either, didn't really get any of that play. So just make sure you keep an eye on these. If they're not getting any bigger, if this line on them isn't changing, if when you look at how many in the millions, if it's not changing any, don't pay much attention to it right away. Look to see if others are starting to slide across the board. Okay, so then we also kind of finished with this red deck, second day in a row. So even though we kind of had that uptrend today, it's interesting to see that there's a lot of short-sighted things going on, which we'll look more into. Also, what is absolutely crazy is our daily flow map going into Friday is very put heavy again. Now that could cause obviously everybody to go long, dealers to go ahead and push it up since there's so many puts on the board, but we will see how that obviously plays out. Okay, so that's just the overall data and market sentiment that we're looking at right now, and just a few tips on how to use this ODTE Gex just a little bit better. All right, as far as our flow line, we know how that went. We don't really need to look at it. Another interesting piece of information that I'm looking at right here are there are a lot of negative divs on the board. Quite a few negative divs on the board, which I find really interesting because we continued to run up. So we have all these negative divs. We have some Gex pulling down at the end of the day there, even though this is ODTE, so that will start over tomorrow. We have a red Dex, and we have this large amount of put concentration going into Friday. So and our red MNS. That's pretty interesting to see. All right, now we'll just get directly into some levels here. I've updated these earlier on in the day. We'll just take a look at what SPY is looking at right now. We obviously got up to about that 416. If you're in the Tradie Discord, we did discuss this being around the bottom around here. I kept saying we're almost there, or I said once or twice maybe we're almost there, and then we went long. I alerted that I was going long. Now I will say that I did indeed paper hand, because I sold on our first bounce off of this and went short a little bit, and I sold those shorts pretty quickly, and then I did not really go long again on SPY. I went on Apple instead once I started to see kind of this trend forming. All right, so we're looking at that. Now we're going to go into the SPY options, and we're just going to see what things look like. Now let's remember, we do not pay attention to this net flow. It says real big in red words. We do not pay attention to it. Okay, this is indices or vehicles for hedging. This can be confusing. So we'll look at the rest of its data going through on here. Okay, so our back test, our dealer Greeks, they have built up quite a bit, even more of a spike today. So when we run our back test, we obviously see that we get a fairly decent profit on that back test. So that is interesting to see. We continue to build, right? This is bearish for SPY. This is bearish right here, this last bar. We continue to build even as price goes up, which is what we want to see if we're looking to swing short. We don't want to swing short on red days. I always want to swing short on the green days, right? So that is how I would prefer to do that. I don't want to buy. I don't want to short the whole. I want to short the moon. All right, so let's take a look at our price distribution really quick. Just going through it, it is bearish for basically the next 2 days. It's bearish into Monday. It is bearish into Tuesday. It's bearish all the way in to the next week. It is absolutely bearish across the board. All right, so that is kind of crazy to see. We've got a lot of bearish signals, but price continues to go up. Sooner or later, it was going to have to break down. Pointing out our information here, tomorrow we have just a small bit of dealer delta. Remember, when we're positive, that means a bit more of a short side, right? The dealers have to sell. But one thing I like to look at is that I don't really like these smaller bars as much. I really like to see these large ones. So once again, there's a third or fourth, maybe even fifth data point pointing to some downside by Friday, which is very interesting to see. Now, obviously, these shift throughout the day, so we have to recheck them. But as far as that goes, right now, this one has continued to stay the same size going into 519, which is kind of interesting for me to see. All right, so our next ticker that we are going to pull up is we are going to take a look at Apple. And we're just going to grab its Greek levels really quick, and then we're going to pull up its chart. It is at the top of its range currently right now. Actually, let's go out a little bit, and let's see if the monthly has any higher up, just to see. Nope, we are still right there at the top of that range. So we're going to go ahead and grab them, and we're going to go ahead and get it pulled up and update our trading levels here in TradingView so we get a nice clean chart. And that is interesting to see. It still has gamma all the way to 175, but then that is the top that we see there. Oh, went ahead and I messed that up. So we'll have to re-add that here in a few. So that's interesting to see. 175 is a little bit crazy to think, but if the market continues to go up, there is probability and some possibility that Apple could go to that 175. All right, so that would be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful short spot if no more gamma appears up as it goes. Okay, and as far as its little zone here, it is above this gamma here. All right, and it has some room down to 170-ish if the market decides to participate. One thing I'm keeping an eye on is if Apple starts to run, I generally just assume that SPY is going to run with it. Apple, Tesla, SPY, if those are running hard, I generally think that SPY has a pretty good chance of running with it. All right, now let's take a look at our Apple options really quick, just to see what it's looking like. All right, its net flow is pretty mixed. It was put heavy, but then it changed. So we'll see how that goes. And then our dealer build up is still pointing towards downside with a very nice win rate. It just hasn't quite happened yet. It also, as we go, is very bearish going into 519. If you're looking at the dealer OI, sort of mixed on its next few days though of price distribution. That's a quick look at Apple. We're going to switch to something that we did not look at last week. We're going to take a look at Tesla, or take a look at on Sunday. We're going to take a quick look at Tesla. We're going to pull its levels, and we're going to see where it might have room to run, and we're going to take a look at its Greeks and all of the other information as well. So Tesla here is still looking pretty good. All right, it had a nice move, obviously off of this area here, which is crazy to see, and it's just kind of been slowly uptrending. But one of the things that's important here is its dealer Greeks are showing alongside right now. So it will be interesting to see. Look at this; it is in a ghost zone to the top of its range, all the way to 180. So if we continue to see upside through the next few days in this ghost zone, we see strong flow, we see all these things, 180 could definitely be some place that it decides to visit. All right, now let's take a look at its Greeks and all of its other information and see what it's doing. So it is building to the downside again, as I had discussed before. And if we look at that back test, it's one of our more powerful ones. It's got a lot of upside potential. But I will like to point out that we get these bigger moves when it's much further down. Right now, it's just building up. Its price distribution going in here is bullish, obviously a little bit, which kind of points towards what we're already seeing. And going into Friday, it's slightly bullish as well, so sort of a bit more mixed, which does lend towards what we see here on the dealer Greeks. And if we look at the dealer OI, there isn't any for 519, but for 526, our next Friday, it's still a little bullish. Remember, red is our pull, so they have to buy to cover here. So that's one of the things we're looking at. All right, well, I forgot to check its Gex and Vex profile. It really, price is not supported. If you take a look at it this high up, it is supported a little further down here, so that is interesting to see. Every time I think that we've gotten that low, it has decided to go back up, so that makes a little bit of sense right around this 165. If we take a look at it, you can see right here, right around that area, we start to get price support on the Gex and Vex profile, which is interesting to see. I didn't check Apple's or SPY, so let's go ahead and take a look. So Apple actually crazily has support up to 180 right here. So that also furthers a little bit of the potential run up for Apple in that ghost zone that it is in. So that is very, very, very interesting to see as well. A lot of mixed signals going into some of these things coming up, and I think that we're just kind of at that precipice where data is starting to point a bunch of different directions, but we haven't quite gotten where we need to go yet with maybe price hitting an upward spot that will finally show us that big downside. All right, we'll just take a look real quick. We already checked the back test. We checked that, but we did not check its Gex and Vex, which is so interesting to see that our biggest price support is around 402, 403, maybe 405, and up here price is not as above this line. Price is not supported as much. All right, so that is kind of crazy to see. Another data point that could point towards some more downside, which I find really interesting. All right, our last one that we're going to pull up again will be QQQ. So let me grab it real quick. Let's go ahead and grab its Greeks. Let's see if there's anything way above there. If not, let's go out to the monthly just to see if there's some more levels up top. Suppose I should click it a little bit better. So there is a little bit of room on QQQ as well to the upside. So what we're kind of seeing is some upside movement. And we'll take a look at SPY real quick once more before I pull QQQ up. There are levels all the way up to 422, right? So some of these things kind of point out. SPY gets a big run, Apple gets a big run to 180, Tesla gets up to its 180, QQQ gets up to where we're about to see potentially. I'm not saying the market doesn't go down and that it doesn't see some struggles, but there's still some gamma sitting in some spots that could pull price towards it, right? Where the money is kind of where we like to take a look. Excuse me. So if we're taking a look here, QQQ has gamma all the way up, which is insane to me. 350. That would be an insane blow off top. So if price hits that, my goodness, if you are in calls and it has one of those days, obviously that would be absolute madness. All right, so there are its levels that we're looking at. It's kind of just bouncing in between here right now, much like we see SPY is. A lot of them are in these tiny little ghost zones that are a little bit tighter, a $2 to $4 range, and obviously we can see how well gamma has performed here for us. Our Gex levels caused these nice bounces and sometimes rejections, but we ended up getting over throughout the day. All right, let's take a look at its options dashboard and see what it's going. Once again, we ignore this. We do not want to pay much attention to it. All right, there are a lot of calls sitting at 330 for further out, but not too far out, so that's pretty interesting to see. All right, now it is much like SPY. It is building up. It doesn't have the same high of a win rate, but the Greeks are starting to build toward the bearish side more and more and more. And we can see it doesn't always go down immediately when it does that. There are times that it just takes a little bit for it to build up, and then it finally kind of does. When you see it this high, obviously, you can see how bad things went for the indice there. It just kept running down and down and down. Interesting to see here, though. All of this is still a little bit bearish, right? Especially on 519 on that Friday as well. I don't know what Friday is supposed to look like, but there's a lot of data pointing towards some downside. That doesn't mean just immediately go short. You still need to play the day and check the data every day, but there are a lot of correlations there starting to point in more than one thing. For tomorrow, it does look somewhat bullish on its price distribution, which is interesting to see with some of this bearish data going into 518 and its Greeks. And then Friday, it shows quite a bit of mixed, but it looks like it's potentially more bearish to me than anything else. So that's also interesting to see there. Those are the 4 tickers that I was covering tonight. I hope this helps everybody kind of understand what I'm looking at and go through the things. And I'll try to cover a new ticker on Friday. We'll pull out Apple and Tesla, and we'll do SPY QQQ and something else. So maybe if you see this video, you can comment on Twitter and say what you would like to see. No garbage tickers, please. I do not want to cover AMC or GME or Wish. Give me things with actual high liquidity flow, and I will gladly take a look at them and see if there's anything worth merit showing. Hope everybody has a good night. I will see you Friday for our end of week recap. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for watching.